To help you understand how we executed the REST call to integrate with Microsoft Azure, we're going to look into the sub-workflows or the helper workflows that we used to create the HTTP header, the data section, and so forth. As you can see here, our create database server workflow, right mouse click, view process. In the first assign statement, we take in information. For example, from our module configuration, we pull in some default values. The service action matches the API REST call that we have to execute. In this call, we want to interact with the servers. If we want to interact with databases or other resources, the last portion of the service action would change. I created it in this fashion in order for me to duplicate these workflows fairly easy and change the service action for the different areas without touching all the subsequent workflows and executions. As we build the individual context item out, we at the end pull this data all together in service data. This is going to be an XML construct that we leverage. As you can see here in our output, this is going to be the service data that we hand over. It contains the user ID and password. Of course, this is only a sample here. The location where we want to deploy the database and the version of the database, version 12.0 or 2.0. And as you can see, the REST API call also requires a naming schema that we provide. So this is going to be part number one, the service data. Part number two is execute the post workflow. And inside of this execute post, we have a compute HTTP post because we have multiple actions that will be executed, post, get, delete, and so forth. And here we look inside how to construct now the HTTP post. As mentioned earlier, we need to have some form of security. The subscription ID and so forth need to be computed, and additional information need to be put in. So for this reason, we have module configuration that is being leveraged, and then we pull in the subscription ID, the actions, and so forth. At the end of the day, the HTTP request is what matters. If we double click on here and look at the request that we constructed, it contains the signature property, our HTTP connection properties, the action that we want to execute, the service data, and we pre-populated this for demo purposes in these fields. So when I click on the preview button, this is the actual HTTP request, then we hand over to the adapter. The adapter itself will then extract the data appropriately and execute an HTTP post. As you can see here, for the adapter, this is the data that we hand over to Microsoft Azure, and for the connection properties, you see this is the data that is handed over into the header. This information from the HTTP request is being pulled into the call adapter. We have here a few more assigns where we manipulate the HTTP request. As we build this from scratch, we always want to have this in the context item called adapter request. Makes debugging and so forth so much easier. And then when we execute the call adapter workflow, you see the adapter name is in the context item adapter name, the request is in the adapter request, and the response is in adapter response. As we need to debug at some point in time, it clearly identifies that these are the context item all related to the actual adapter call. Cancel this. And we talked about stripping out the namespace when we get the adapter response. And here in the adapter response, we extract the status message, and additional information as service result. This one here is also very generic because the default is here. We copy and paste this workflow multiple times. The service result can be specific to the server, to the database, or any other resources. So we keep this one very generic. After this call is being executed, it will hand over the data to the higher workflow, where we can say, what is it that we want to extract from this service result? In this case, it's our service server name, and in case of the database workflows, it's the database name, and so forth. The individual resources will extract that data. So to help you understand why we build it this way, First, we have an overall wrapper of the API, which is create a database server, right mouse click. Then we have a specific configurations for that API call that we put into the HTTP data. We hand it over to a helper workflow HTTP post. This HTTP post returns always a service result, and from that service result, we extract the individual components that we're interested in. And the execution of this you can see in the video where we have that running end to end.